Okay, so as we're talking about cholesterol, you're going to see a few numbers and those readings on your blood work. Okay, so you have VLDL. All right, your VLDL. So a lot of people, they heard about the HDL, they heard about the LDL. Type 2 diabetes is a cardiovascular disease, which means that the cells are insulin resistant. So pretty much if you hear syndrome X, that's insulin resistance. So that's another name for type 2 diabetes, is syndrome X, insulin resistant type 2 diabetes, which is different from type 1. So let's look at this, right? It says VL. So you're familiar with low density lipoproteins. And like we discussed before, your body, you do need protein. That's why it's called amino acids, essential amino acids. And it's also called essential fats, essential fats. So the essential amino acids, what they are, protein molecules. And first of all, you go in as protein broken down in the gut or the stomach as amino acids. And then, of course, the liver distributes where it needs to be. But your proteins are these molecules that deliver from your liver, they deliver the cholesterol to your bloodstream, and they also package up your cholesterol and take that extra cholesterol that's floating around in your bloodstream, and they send it back to the liver. That's called the HDL. That's why everybody says, hey, the HDL, they're wonderful. That's the one that we want good numbers on, because the high density lipoprotein, that removes the cholesterol or that extra cholesterol out of your bloodstream and back to your liver. Well, here's the issue, guys. Everybody says the bad cholesterol is called low density lipoprotein. Bad? I thought that everything that God made was good. So therefore, I don't think that we can call it bad. Low density lipoproteins is there to repair. It's there to restore. So whenever you're, because of lifestyle habits, alcohol, sugar, whatever it is, cigarette smoking, whenever all of those things are, those contaminants are entered into the system, it damages the arterial walls, which is called the endothelium layer. That's the little thin layer of cells in the arteries. So therefore, your liver says, okay, we have to patch it up. And what does it do? It sends out cholesterol into the into the blood in order to patch up those damaged walls. So it's low density lipoproteins. However, the issue is, what have we been doing all these years to demand more cholesterol to enter out into the bloodstream? And that is what we want to look into. However, when you see VLDL, you're going to see it on your blood work. You're going to see it on your triglyceride readings. Listen, that's the V is very low density lipoprotein, which means when you see the VLDL, that deals with triglycerides. The triglycerides is a little bit different from your cholesterol. Yes, both of them are being pushed out by the liver, but the triglycerides is pretty much the leftover calories that you had that you didn't burn off throughout the day. They are turned into triglycerides. And the very low density lipoproteins is what travels the triglycerides into the fat cells, not the LDL, but the very low density lipoproteins, which is the VLDL. So let's talk about, and of course, we already know the cell brain, the cholesterol is good for your system. It actually helps you break down fat. It helps with the digestive tract. It helps with the vitamin D. It helps with the coating of your cells and your organs. It's good, but the problem was too much cholesterol. Now, what is the main thing that everybody says? I'm going to ask you guys, what is the main thing that everybody says high cholesterol comes from? Where do they say high cholesterol comes from?
Probably eggs.
Okay,
Meat.
yes. What egg? What else?
Pork. Meat.
Meat.
Dairy,
Yes.
just a dairy.
Yes. So you're at both of you are absolutely correct. Now, let me say this. Eggs, they are loaded. I'm gonna show you a chart. All right. So you got like egg yolk and you have egg whites. All right. So if you ever watched Rocky, like back in the day, then not the Creed and all that stuff, but the old Rocky with Rocky Balboa, not Rocky, Sylvester Stallone. Well, I guess he was all of them. If you ever seen Rocky back in the day when he was training, he cracked open a bunch of eggs, stirred it up, and then drank it whole. Gross. He didn't even separate the egg yolk from the egg white. Why? Because bodybuilders, and when they're bulking up, they try to get as much cholesterol in as possible. Now watch this, not knowing, like the damage of it. They just say, okay, eggs got a lot of protein, a lot of cholesterol and all these things, but they look at the good, but they don't look at the bad, okay? So that's just like today's society, right? There's so many health gurus out there, and they'll come up to somebody and say, hey, listen, this is what you need to do. You need to drink this, or you need to eat this, or you need to take this herb. People are taking herbs and they have no idea that you can't take herbs with certain supplements, or you can't take herbs with certain medications. So all these health gurus, they're giving out the information, and they might know, but if you don't consult with that person and don't know what that person has been doing for years, and then say, hey, go ahead and take this, it's going to be a quick fix, they're doing more damage than good. So we always have to be aware of what we are doing, because if somebody tells you something to do right away and they have not consulted with you, not knowing what you're doing, what medications you're on, that can be very dangerous. So right here, guys, your cells, of course, and we already talked about the mother of all disease is free radicals, where it damages this part right there. That's the mitochondria. So remember, VLDLs, that delivers the triglycerides into the bloodstream. LDL, remember, that's the protein that delivers the cholesterol into the bloodstream. And HDL, that removes the over excess amount of cholesterol from the bloodstream back to the liver. But there's an issue if you have fatty liver. If fatty liver is an issue, you got to find out from your doctor. If fatty liver is an issue, well, we got to look at something else, okay? Because normally they say, hey, listen, you can, drink some extra virgin olive oil, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have fatty liver, well, we're about to find out what the issue is with that. So let's look at this right here. Let's look at this right here. Which foods raise cholesterol? Oh my goodness. I thought, yes, it's still eggs, an overabundant amount of eggs. It's still the meat, an overabundant amount of meats, because we can only have a certain amount of saturated fats and fats a day. We can only have a certain amount of cholesterol a day also. So what foods raise it? Sugar. Sugar raises it. If you think about sugar, right? If you're looking at all of these things, everything that you eat, I don't care if it has a low glycemic index, I don't care if it has a high glycemic index, and next week we're going to break down the difference between glycemic index and the glycemic load. There's a glycemic index and a glycemic load. These raise blood sugar levels and they raise cholesterol. People normally go with the meat route. They go with the eggs, which is true, but this is worse because most of the people in the world, they are on a high carb diet. So these are the ones that raise the cholesterol. Well, how does that work? Why does that raise cholesterol? Think about if you're drinking like something I used to drink back in the day, and it was $1, and it was a big old cup of it, and it was at McDonald's. They used to have specials. It was $1 sweet tea. And I'm gonna tell you something, that sweet tea was sweeter than anything you can imagine. And it will keep you on your toes, but it was doing damage to the system. Why? Because just like alcohol they say it's empty calories because there's no nutritional value. So all the breakfast cereals, let me name a breakfast cereal. And all of it deals with sugar, okay? Count Dracula is a breakfast cereal. I'm trying to think of something. I'm trying to think of something else.
Fruit Loops.
Fruit
Cinnamon
Loops.
Toast Crunch.
Oh, what is it? What was that?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Cinnamon. Oh my goodness. You just took me back. Cinnamon.
Frosted Flakes.
Don't even mention Frosted Flakes. Oh my goodness. All people put sugar on Frosted Flakes. Listen to this. All of that raises the blood sugar. When it raises the blood sugar, here's the problem. Here's what's happening. Here's what's happening, okay? Especially if you have fatty liver. Here's what's happening. All these foods right here. Now, when you talk about the crackers, hydrogenated oil. So the hydrogenated oil, we're talking about trans fats. All of this raises blood sugar. So here's what's going on, right? as you eat the food, it turns into that wonderful blood sugar called glucose. That glucose is then converted by the liver into glycogen. It's also converted by the liver into glycogen and is stored in the muscle cells as glycogen, which are quick release stores of glucose. Now, here's the problem. Here's the problem. Your insulin is on high alert. Once you put it in your mouth, once you put the food in your mouth, it triggers the senses in order to tell the pancreas to release the insulin in order to start the levels, to neutralize the levels of blood sugar. But because people eat a high carb diet, and on top of that, eat the eggs and the meat and all these things, now your body is going to say, all right, saturated fat, monounsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat. Well, out of those three, the main thing that's used for fuel is saturated fat. So therefore, the saturated fat, it does not have to go through a long process in the gastrointestinal tract in order to be used for fuel. It doesn't have to, because your body needs it. Your cells need it. Your brain needs it. However, when you're talking about the polyunsaturated fat, which is like seed oils, those are wonderful for your system. It's wonderful for your cells, and they call it MCT. Oh, MCT oil just blew out of out of nowhere, and that is medium chain triglycerides. So when you talk about medium chain triglyceride, let's say like coconut oil, hemp oil, then all of those things are good for your system. But people don't know, if you have fatty liver, you can't even use them because you have too much fat in the liver. So your insulin sends out the signal, release insulin into your system. The insulin has a one-track mind, which is to store fat. So what's going to happen, the glycogen that's stored already, your body can only store but so much glycogen. Your glycogen is stored already in your liver, and then it's already stored in the muscle, and here comes more glucose, the insulin. So the insulin says, hey, listen, liver, you go right ahead and do your thing, and it converts all of that extra glucose into the fat cells. And that's why when people take insulin shots, they're only bigger and bigger, and that's how it works. Because one thing about high blood sugars is just a symptom of diabetes. It's not the cause. It's just a symptom. Because everybody's being treated by the symptom with insulin shots, metformin, Jardiance, and all this stuff, because they're taking the medication or the medicine, but they're not changing their lifestyle habits, everything is still causing more issues. And the more issues, you go to the doctor, what do? They put you on more medicine. So we have to stop that by changing our lifestyle. And once you change the lifestyle, you'll see that, oh, this is the culprit. This is the culprit. It's the alcohol, it's the breakfast cereals, like those cereals y'all just mentioned, the pasta, the noodles, all of those different type of wheats, because the wheat has been hybridized. Don't forget, the wheat has been hybridized. So let's see. What am I going? I am going to give you, I'm going to share with you the actual numbers concerning some of the foods that we have been putting in all these years. I'm going to stop screen and I'm going to share my screen again. Let's look at this number right here. Can y'all see this one?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yes. All right. Now, I will post this for you if you want this, if you want to, use it for, just to help others and so forth, so they can, sometimes the old saying is seeing is believing, okay? So sometimes people have to see, let them see the numbers, knowing that, well, during the day, I should only have 300 milligrams of cholesterol. And then you got to also look at the caloric intake of what you're eating. But let's look at this, okay? Content in milligrams for each 100 grams. 100 grams is a cup, okay? So 1 cup of egg yolk, 1 cup of egg yolk will give you 1,195 milligrams of cholesterol. Did y'all get that? That's egg yolk. So what do people normally do when they're trying to get lean? They take the egg, separate it. I've seen people do this, do like this, and they get the yolk, and what do they keep? What do people keep?
Egg white.
They get to keep the egg white. They keep the egg white. Well, people want to do that. I get it. That's fine. However, we still got to take in consideration that that's just 1,195 from the egg yolk. There's still a lot in the egg white, but you're not going to get nowhere near as much as the egg yolk. And then look at this. It says quantity of food in grams, which provides the 300 milligrams maximum daily allowed. So pretty much you only need 23 grams of egg yolk. That's still a lot of, remember, 100 grams gives you 1,195 milligrams of cholesterol, but you only need to get the whole 300 milligrams of cholesterol for the whole day. I'm not talking about over, I'm just talking about for the whole day, 23 grams of egg yolk. Not a lot of people are going to eat 23 grams of egg yolk. So right there, guys, right there, you got to look at it, you know, am I going to get all of it from one sitting, or am I going to get multiple sittings? 1 second, please. Sorry about that. Now look at this. Beef liver. All right. The one thing that you got to remember, too many people are eating the organs of the animal. When you eat the organs of the animal, it's going to be loaded with more purines, P-U-R-I-N-E-S. When you eat, the more purines that you eat, when you eat it, your body's going to convert it into uric acid, which is going to cause all type of acidity in your system, which is going to be crystallizing your joints, and it's going to turn to gout and all other issues. So let's look at the beef liver. Beef liver, 100, just a cup of beef liver is going to give you 309 milligrams. 309 milligrams of cholesterol, 1 cup. Meat fat. Now, we are not to eat the fat of the animal. We're not to eat the fat of the animal. 300 out of 1 cup, 300 milligrams of cholesterol. Butter, 1 cup, 219 milligrams. Now, as you go down, notice this. 13.6 grams. 1 cup of whole milk, 13.6 grams of cholesterol. Now, let's take consideration that the whole milk is not what it used to be. Remember, it is pasteurized. What does that mean? It's also concentrated. What does that mean? It means that it's stored away in some large vat and then is heated. The reason why milk is heated to a certain level is to destroy all the pathogens and the bacteria that allows it to go rancid really quickly. So therefore, in order for you to save it and then store it, package it, store it, and then send it, deliver it off to certain stores and so forth, then you don't want it to go bad. So you have to pasteurize it, and some of them says ultra pasteurization, in order to sell that milk on the market in the stores. So it's already, by the time it hits the stores, it has lost all nutritional value. But because there's so much fat and cholesterol in those containers, especially whole milk, guess what? You're still going to get that calcium, but you're also going to get the acid on top of it. So that right there can mess up your bones. It can also, the reason why milk messes up the bones, because of the high levels of acid. When you drink large amounts of milk, your body has to neutralize it, and the best antacid that your body has is called calcium. And where is it going to get the calcium? It's going to get the calcium and pull it from your bones. So that's why back in the day, don't believe that got milk, all that stuff, don't believe it. It was actually causing osteoporosis. Instead of as it was advertised, milk makes the bones healthier. It did not. It only made it worse. Another thing that they advertised. Oh, here it is. Look at this. Pork chops, pork sausage. Back years ago, it was well known, it was well documented that pork was bad for the system. You know, they don't sweat, high levels of trichinosis, which is small worms in the hooves. And when you squeeze it and when you boil it, you see the worms come to the surface. So all these issues was happening, right? So the pork industry, they started to get clever. They said, listen, we got to do something in order to get us back on the market. And guess what they did? It says they had this one slogan, and when they hit that one slogan, it went off the roof. The one slogan was the other white meat. Oh my goodness. People went crazy. People went crazy. You know, marketers, when they do advertisements, I'm going to tell you something, they work because they know how to work the conscious and the subconscious of people. Look at this. Look at this. When you go all the way down, fruits, cereals, and vegetables. Now, when I say cereals, I'm not talking about like Fruit Loops and I'm talking about all that. We're not talking about sugary cereals. When we say cereals, we're talking about oats. We're talking about millet, things of that nature where you actually have to cook it. But look, fruits, cereals, and vegetables, that's why you can eat as much as you like. Yes, there's this thing called oxalic acid, which can be dangerous, but that's like if you eat the high amounts of spinach. So there's certain greens that produce certain acid, but that's only when you eat high and large amounts of it, okay? But look at the safe haven when it comes to fruits, cereals, and vegetables. No cholesterol whatsoever. So in order to reverse this thing, we want to be wise and intelligent of what we've been putting into our system and what we've been put into our system. If that has not worked, we're going to do a new route in order to get optimal health and wellness. So cholesterol is the main culprit of insulin resistance. And remember, it wasn't necessarily the high meats and it wasn't necessarily the sugar. You know, a lot of people, years ago, they did studies on just people eating sugar, like white sugar. And they noticed some differences, but they didn't notice insulin resistance. The insulin resistance came from high amounts of cholesterol and fat into your system, which impregnated the fat walls around your cells, which no longer allowed the insulin to unlock the door to allow the glucose to come in. So that was the issue, was a high amount now of the high carbs, which was producing more cholesterol by forcing the liver to demand the liver to push out more and more cholesterol. That was the issue. It was the high carbs. Now, take the high carbs, now stack on top the meat and the eggs. It's a recipe for disaster, and it takes time. It takes 2 to 3 years for atherosclerosis to kick in. That's the hardening and plaque of the arterial walls, which is called the endothelium layer. So 2 to 3 years. So what we can do, and we already have some action steps. One of the main action steps that you have is vitamin C. Vitamin C. And we went over that in another video. So what we're going to do, we're going to stop right here for questions, comments, or concerns as we let's do a little bit more habits changes and action steps in order to reverse this thing. All right, take care.